An old, wounded dog dragged himself across hundreds of miles just to collapse on the porch of a worn-down house. No one understood why he came there, until a woman stepped outside and called the very name he thought had been forgotten: Harley. This isn't just a story about a dog being abandoned. It's a journey of loyalty, memory, and a heart that simply refused to give up. If you're someone who loves real, moving stories that make you reflect, go ahead and subscribe to Dog Stories today. Because here, every story doesn't just touch you, it stays with you. And now, let's begin Harley's journey, from the shadows to the place he once called home. The road was silent. Only the crunch of dry gravel echoed beneath tired footsteps. He walked slowly, each step weighted like he was carrying the weight of time itself. His fur was coated in dust, his tail hung low, drained of life. His eyes, no longer sharp, but deep, holding a story no one had told. This wasn't the image of a puppy chasing butterflies or playing in the sun. This was an old shepherd, walking alone through desolate land, as if he knew exactly where he was going, as if memory itself was guiding him. His name was Harley, the name etched into a worn leather collar, frayed by the years. With every step, the collar jingled softly, like the distant chime of a dream long past. Where was he going, and why? Was he all alone? A pickup truck sped past, kicking up a cloud of dust. Harley didn't flinch. He just kept walking, straight ahead, as if something important was waiting at the end of that road. To strangers, he was just another stray. Nameless, forgotten. But Harley wasn't lost. He was searching for something that once felt familiar. He paused beside a broken fence post, sniffed the air. There was a scent, something he knew. But it wasn't right. Not this place. The sun grew harsher, the heat pressing down on his thin, bony frame. Still, Harley didn't stop. He limped forward, his left leg clearly hurting. His paw pads were cracked, streaked with blood. But he kept going, steady, unshaken. A faint memory flickered in his mind. A little boy sitting on the porch steps, a warm dinner inside, laughter echoing from the backyard, the screen door slamming shut on a summer night. Home, maybe far away now, but for Harley, it was never too late to go back. High above, a lone crow called out. The wind rustled through dry brush. Somewhere in the distance, a young dog barked. Harley didn't answer. He just kept walking. The road ahead was still long, cracked, uneven, empty. But to Harley, this wasn't just a road. This was the road home. Before there were tired steps on a dusty path, Harley had lived a different life. One that no one could possibly imagine now, just by looking at him. The house sat in a quiet suburb of Wyoming, where summer skies stretched endlessly blue and open fields reached all the way to the horizon. That's where Harley grew up, with a family he once believed was his entire world. Harley joined them when he was just 6 weeks old, a fluffy little German shepherd with perked ears and eyes so bright it was like he was asking the world, "Where do I begin?" His owner was a retired police officer named Michael Turner. But the one Harley bonded with most was Michael's son, Ely, who was only 7 at the time. From the moment Harley stepped paw into that house, he wasn't just a dog. He was a friend, a little brother, a hero in Eli's eyes. In the mornings, Eli would wake up before his alarm, just so he could be the first to say, "Good morning, Harley." At night, Harley would curl up right at the foot of Eli's bed, ears perked, listening to every breath. There was a time Eli had a nightmare. Harley gently climbed onto the bed and pressed himself against the boy like a living blanket. In the backyard, Harley ran beside Eli all summer long, jumping through the sprinkler, tearing up his mom's gardening gloves without a hint of guilt. Whenever the family went on picnics, Harley was always there, riding in the back seat, head out the window, tongue flapping in the wind. To Michael, Harley was more than just a pet. He was an old partner. He used to say, "That dog understands my eyes better than most people understand my words." Every evening, Harley would lay beside Michael's armchair, while the old man read the paper, sipped his bourbon, and played old country songs on the stereo. At Christmas, Harley had his own stocking, hanging right next to Eli's above the fireplace. Every year there were new toys, treats, and the smell of something baking filling the house. Eli once whispered to Harley, "You were my birthday wish when I turned 6, and it came true." Everyone thought time would stand still, that the golden afternoons with Harley lying on the porch would just keep going. But time doesn't work that way. When Harley turned 9, the signs of age began to show. His steps slowed, he had trouble sleeping, and he coughed more at night. But the biggest change wasn't in his body. It was the air inside the house. Michael started being away more often. His new job as a security guard at a shipping dock kept him gone for weeks at a time. Eli's mom moved out of state to care for her ailing father, and Eli grew up, started high school, got busy with classes and basketball practice. Harley stayed patient. Every time he heard a car from a distance, he'd run to the door and sit, waiting. Whenever Eli got home late, Harley would lie under the stairs, eyes wide open, never blinking. He didn't understand why things had changed. He just knew they had. But no matter what, Harley still loved them, still believed in them, still waited. Then one day a cardboard box appeared in the living room. Plastic bins, duffel bags, the sound of packing tape. Harley didn't understand what was happening. He just wandered around, sniffing everything, tail wagging gently. Eli gave him a soft stroke down the back and whispered something so quiet only Harley could hear. Then he walked out the door. Harley stayed. The door closed behind him, and for a long, long time, no one came back. The house grew quieter with each passing day. No more sounds of Eli's footsteps running across the wooden floors in the morning. No more scent of fresh-baked pastries drifting from the kitchen. Harley was used to waiting, but this silence, it was different. It wasn't like when they went on vacation, or those normal days when no one was home. This felt like something was changing, something that wouldn't come back. One chilly October afternoon, Harley heard a strange noise. The car door opening, boxes being loaded, voices he couldn't quite make out. He stepped out onto the porch, tail wagging softly. His eyes lit up when he saw Eli. But Eli didn't run over and hug him like before. He just looked, blinked a few times, then turned away. Michael was carrying a large box, setting it into the bed of the pickup truck. He glanced at Harley, but then looked away. Harley sat there, confused, but still trusting. The engine started. Eli came out one last time, holding a small bag in his hand. He knelt beside Harley and gently placed the bag of food by his paws. "Just stay here for a little while, okay? We'll be back to get you soon," he said, voice trembling, eyes red. Harley tried to lick the boy's hand as if to say, "I understand. I'll wait." Then Eli stood up and ran back to the truck. The door slammed shut. The pickup rolled forward slowly, then picked up speed down the dirt road in front of the house. Harley stood there watching until all that was left was dust blowing in the wind. At first he thought it was just a short trip, like all the other times. Maybe they'd forgotten something and would be back soon. He lay beneath the tree near the gate, keeping watch, his ears perked up at every engine sound. But the cars that passed were all strangers. None of them stopped. One day went by, then two. The food in the bag slowly ran out. Still Harley didn't move. His eyes had begun to cloud, but in his heart one image remained crystal clear. The warm kitchen, Eli's laughter, Michael's gentle hands. Then the rain came. Early autumn in the high plains was no comfort. Cold wind whipped against his thinning frame. Harley found a corner beneath the porch to shield himself from the rain. But even then his eyes stayed fixed on the gate, waiting. On the fifth day, a neighbor walked by. She paused, surprised to see Harley still lying there. "This poor thing, still waiting on someone?" she murmured, shaking her head. She placed a bowl of water down and walked away. Harley took a few sips, then returned to his spot. He didn't understand why everything had changed. Didn't understand why Eli, the boy who once called him a birthday wish, had left him behind. He only knew one thing. He had to wait. A week later, the house officially went up for sale. A real estate agent came, took down the Turner family's nameplate from the front gate. The last boxes were hauled away. No one said anything to Harley. Not a single goodbye. He began wandering the neighborhood, hoping someone might lead him back to where he belonged. But every unfamiliar face, every indifferent glance only tested Harley's loyalty more than ever. One night, as the temperature dropped sharply, Harley curled beneath a bush, eyes shut tight. But the next morning, he stood up again. If they weren't coming back, he would go find them. No one gave the order. No one called his name. But in Harley's heart, the decision had already been made. He left that neighborhood, alone. No map, no guide, only an aging heart that still knew how to love, and a memory of the place once called home. That morning, the sky was gray, and dew still clung thick to the grass. Harley left the old neighborhood through a quiet path, an old dirt alley behind the house that once led him to the field where he used to play with Eli. No one saw him leave. No one tried to stop him. Harley didn't know exactly where the old house was now. He only remembered fragments, the scent of damp pine wood, the chime of wind bells against the door, a street corner where Eli used to wait for the school bus every morning. He had no map, only memories. The first leg of his journey took him along the edge of the city. Paved roads stretched smooth and silent, unforgiving beneath worn paws. Harley walked quietly, head lowered, ears twitching at every sound of passing cars. A few people passed by and glanced at him. Some looked at him with pity, but no one stopped. A child tried to run toward him, but his mother pulled him back. "Don't touch it, sweetie. It might bite." Harley didn't react. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He just kept walking. By noon, the sun grew harsher. Heat rose off the pavement, blurring his vision. His limp was more noticeable now, and his paw prints smeared across the hot asphalt. He stopped under the shade of an abandoned bus stop. There, Harley faced his first real struggle: thirst. No more clean bowls of water set out by Eli's mom each morning, no more garden hose to play in, just a dry tongue and a throat that burned like fire. Harley licked a puddle of water off a storm drain cover. It was bitter and foul, but he drank it anyway. Then he got up and kept walking, unsteady on his feet. Hunger hit right after. He tried to resist it the first 3 days, but survival slowly began to outweigh pride. Harley started digging through trash. A moldy bag of bread, a few scraps of chicken near a fast food dumpster. Once he fought for food with a stray cat. The cat swiped at him with sharp claws. Harley flinched back just in time. He didn't fight back. He simply stepped away and let it have the rest. He had never lived like this before. For Harley, these weren't just days of wandering. It was the first time he had ever lived like he belonged nowhere. One night, he slept beside an abandoned shipping crate behind a supermarket. Car horns, voices, the flicker of neon lights on the roof. None of it let him rest. At one point, a loud crash startled him. He jumped up, only to feel a sharp pain shoot through his right leg, the same one injured when he was a pup. By morning, Harley could barely stand. His left leg was swollen, and one eye wouldn't open all the way. But then, somewhere in the wind, a familiar sound rang out. The soft chime of a wind bell tapping against a metal door. He got up, shaking, but still moving forward. Passing through another suburban stretch, Harley began to recognize faint landmarks: the old red post office, the gas station where Michael used to fill up the tank. His heart beat faster. His legs still ached, but his steps suddenly felt more certain. Harley didn't know how much farther he had to go. He wasn't even sure if anyone was waiting. But that didn't matter. Because to him, as long as there was even a flicker of hope, the journey wasn't over. Harley entered the nameless stretch of land on the 10th day since he'd left. His legs had gone numb. Each step felt like placing his entire weight onto shards of broken glass. Autumn was turning colder, faster than expected. Wind cut through the patches of thinning fur, whipping against his dry, raw skin, making him shiver with every gust. He thought he'd known hunger. He thought he'd known thirst. But never like this. His belly had hollowed out, growling like something deep in the forest. The night before, he'd eaten nothing but a few crumbs of crackers that had fallen beneath a park bench. By noon today, there was nothing left, only a grease-stained wrapper he licked clean until it tore apart. At one stretch of highway, Harley was nearly hit. A silver SUV came too fast just as he stepped into the lane. A blaring horn split the air. The tires screeched across the pavement. Harley flinched, dropped low to the ground, his paws slipping on the asphalt as he tumbled into the grassy shoulder. The SUV paused for a second, then sped off. The driver didn't get out. No one asked if he was okay. Only the smell of exhaust and the echo of that horn lingered in his ears. Harley didn't whimper. He didn't howl. He slowly got back up. His eyes were cloudy, but the fire inside hadn't gone out. That night, the rain came, sudden and unforgiving. Harley looked for shelter beneath a highway overpass. There, he found a homeless man curled under a torn blanket. The old man didn't chase him away. "You don't have a home either, huh?" The man mumbled, not sure if he was talking to Harley or to himself. Harley lay down beside a pile of cardboard boxes. The warmth from the man's body helped him hold on to what little heat he had left on that bone-chilling night. For the first time in many nights, he actually slept. By morning, the old man was gone, but he had left behind a chunk of bread and an opened can of sardines. Harley didn't know if it was the man's last bit of food or just a passing act of kindness. But he ate every crumb. It was one of the rare times he'd received anything from anyone since the journey began. As he continued on, Harley began to see how much bigger the world was than he'd ever known. There were places so harsh they felt cruel, empty lots littered with broken glass, abandoned industrial zones tangled with rusted wire, roads split open like scars on the skin of the earth. One afternoon, he slipped into an abandoned junkyard, searching for anything he could eat. Rats scattered in every direction. Another stray dog, skin and bones, growled from a distance. Harley didn't approach. He knew this wasn't a place worth fighting over. He kept moving despite his stomach twisting in knots. At one point, Harley collapsed again, right in the middle of a barren stretch of land. The wind lashed at his face. His vision blurred. He lay still, breathing shallow, no strength left. A hawk circled and dipped low, maybe thinking he was already gone. But then, a sound drifted through the wind, faint, far off, like metal wind chimes brushing against each other, just like the ones that used to hang from the old porch. Harley opened his eyes, forced himself to rise. His instinct, the very thing that made Michael choose him over the rest of the litter, was still there. That instinct wouldn't let him stop until the journey was done. He pushed himself up, staggered, then moved forward. One leg dragged behind, and every breath came with pain. But Harley didn't look back, because somewhere out there, something was still waiting for him. Or maybe it was something he hadn't had the chance to say goodbye to. That morning, the sky was covered in a thin layer of gray clouds. The cold air left dew clinging to the roadside grass. Harley moved slowly around a bend near the highway, his legs dragging, as if every last bit of strength was focused on simply staying upright. He had come too far, through neighborhoods, fields, and now into the empty suburbs along the state line. A nameless stretch of land, unfamiliar, yet not far enough to make him give up. When he stopped near the edge of a small roadside gas station on Route 12, a pickup truck had just pulled in. A middle-aged man stepped out, gas nozzle in hand, eyes still fixed on the pump screen, until he glanced over at the grassy edge and saw Harley. The dog stood still, eyes locked on the stranger. There was no fear, no begging, just silence. His cloudy eyes still held a glimmer of something deeper than exhaustion. The man stopped pumping gas. He wasn't the sentimental type. Born and raised on a farm in northern Kansas, he'd seen more than his share of abandoned dogs, lost animals, and the cold indifference people showed to eyes that once knew love. But there was something about this dog that wouldn't let him turn away like he usually did. He slowly walked toward Harley, keeping a respectful distance. There was no fear in the dog's gaze, no resentment, just a quiet question in those tired eyes. "Have you ever lost someone?" The old collar was frayed at the edges. The strap was nearly torn through. No tag remained, just a rusted buckle and a deep indentation around the neck. The mark of a life that once had an owner, a place to belong. The man quietly returned to his truck, pulled out half a protein bar from his jacket pocket and placed it on the ground, not too close to Harley. The dog sniffed it, nudged it gently, then ate. Slowly, calmly. Not desperate, not afraid, as if he was still trying to hold on to something, maybe pride. The man's chest tightened, not out of pity, but because he understood. An old dog doesn't just need food, he needs someone, he needs memory, he needs what the world has taken away. He reached for his phone, ready to call the local animal shelter. But when he looked up, Harley was already turning away. Slow, steady, every step a decision. He didn't need saving, he was simply finishing the last chapter of his story. The man stood there for a long time. The wind picked up. A dry leaf drifted by and caught at his feet. He watched the figure grow smaller down the uneven road, lowered his head, didn't call out, because he understood some journeys aren't meant to be interrupted. Maybe he was searching for a familiar porch, a blue wooden door, or simply the sound of someone calling his name again. But one thing was certain. He knew where he was going, and why. Harley continued on, leaving behind one more person, a stranger who would never forget the look in his eyes. Harley had been walking for nearly 3 weeks. Time no longer meant days or hours to him. It was measured in waves of exhaustion, in moments of rising after falling, and in memories that grew sharper with every step. That afternoon the sky was overcast, and the cold wind felt like a warning of rain to come. Harley was crossing a dirt road deep inside an old neighborhood, where houses sat apart behind wooden fences and the grass hadn't been trimmed in weeks. Everything looked strangely familiar, like a dream just about to come true. The scent of ferns, the soft chime of small iron wind bells, the blue wooden door, its paint peeling. Harley stopped. His eyes followed the gentle slope ahead, and his heart pounded. It was his old house. No one needed to confirm it. No one needed to say his name. Every sense in his body screamed the same thing. This was home. Harley stepped up each wooden stair, the same ones where he used to lie for hours, soaking in the summer sun. But by the last step, his legs trembled. His body had no strength left. His vision blurred. He collapsed, softly like a falling leaf. No sound, only the ragged rhythm of his breathing, heavy and uneven, like waves breaking on shore. Harley lay on his side, head turned toward the door. His eyes barely open. He didn't want to sleep. Not now. Not when he'd finally made it back. Across the street, a middle-aged woman had just stepped out of her gate. Her name was Sandra Nichols, and she'd lived in this neighborhood for over 20 years. She had just returned from the market when she noticed a small, dark figure collapsed on the porch across the road. At first, she thought it was just a pile of trash someone had left behind. But as she got closer, she froze. It was a dog. Old, skin and bones, and strangely familiar. Sandra rushed over, her heart tightening when she saw the wound on his leg and the nearly torn, weathered collar. "Oh my God, is that?" she whispered. She recognized those eyes, even clouded. Even with fur turned to silver, it was Harley. The dog had once belonged to the Turner family. They had moved away 3 years ago, without a word of goodbye. Sandra still remembered the boy, Eli, how he used to play catch with Harley in the yard every afternoon. She remembered how Harley would lie beneath the pear tree, watching her water her flowers from across the fence. And then one day, the Turners were just gone. Only Harley remained. He stayed on that porch for a full week. Never moved. Then he too disappeared. Sandra had always assumed he'd died, or maybe someone had taken him in. No one ever really knew what happened, and yet here he was, collapsed on the steps of the old house, exhausted, but home. Sandra knelt beside him, gently placing her hand on his head. "Harley, you really came back?" Harley's eyes opened slightly. A soft sound escaped his throat, not a bark, not a whimper, more like a sigh. He recognized her. Recognized the voice that used to drift from across the fence each morning as she watered her plants, the one that used to call him lazy old man whenever he spent all day stretched out in the yard. Harley tried to lift his head, but couldn't. Instead, he gave a faint wag of his tail, just once. Sandra pulled out her phone and immediately called the nearest veterinary clinic. By the time the vet arrived, Harley was already wrapped in a warm towel, gently laid across the back seat of her car. On the way to the clinic, Sandra told the vet everything she knew about Harley, his past, how he had once been left behind, and how, though no one could understand how, he had somehow found his way back. "This dog might have traveled over 100 miles, the vet said, shaking his head in disbelief. Harley lay still in the towel, eyes closed, breathing steady. He didn't bark, he didn't move, but anyone watching could feel it. He knew he had made it home. The vet made no promises. With extreme exhaustion, heart issues, and severe dehydration, Harley's chances of survival were less than 30%. But they would try. And no matter what happened next, Harley had already completed the journey. The room was bright and quiet. A faint scent of antiseptic drifted through a small window crack. Outside, the rain had stopped. Only the wind could be heard, whistling through the bare trees in front of the clinic. Harley opened his eyes. The space around him felt unfamiliar. No more wooden porch steps, no wind chimes, no sign of Eli or Michael. But there was no dust, no biting cold, no scent of scorched pavement either. Only warmth. Clean, gentle warmth. He tried to lift his head. He couldn't, but then he felt a hand rest softly on his head, steady, kind, like someone was comforting him with every ounce of tenderness a human heart could give. "Good morning, old man," a warm voice said. It was Sandra. Harley didn't know how long it had been since someone last spoke to him with that kind of tenderness. He didn't understand every human word, but he understood eyes, the rhythm of a hand, and the feeling of someone being there. And clearly, she wasn't going anywhere. In the days that followed, Harley received special care. Veterinarians took turns giving him fluids, medication, and monitoring his vitals. His body was so weak, he couldn't even lift himself to drink water. But no one rushed. No one gave up. "We don't know how he's even still alive," one of the vets told Sandra. "Honestly, in this condition, he shouldn't have made it that far." Sandra simply smiled, because he had a reason to keep going. Every day she came back, sometimes with an old towel she used for her dog 10 years ago, sometimes with a slice of homemade meatloaf, soft enough that Harley didn't have to chew much. Each time she walked into the room, she greeted him. "Harley, I'm here." And every time, no matter how tired he was, Harley would try to lift his head. His skinny tail would wag just once, a quiet little welcome. The clinic staff began calling him the stubborn old man. One brought him a new blanket, another played soft music at night to help him sleep. No one was told to do it, they just did. Because that dog, without saying a single word, had told them a story they couldn't forget. In the second week, Harley stood up, not for long, just a few shaky steps, then he lay back down. But he stood, on his own. The whole clinic held its breath, then burst into joyful laughter. Sandra turned to a nurse, eyes glistening. "He's really not giving up." Harley still didn't know where he was, but for the first time in many long months, he didn't feel left behind. That night, Sandra arrived later than usual. When she stepped into the room, Harley was already fast asleep, his head resting on the edge of the small bed, legs tucked in, breathing steady. She gently sat down beside him and placed her hand on his back. "Sleep well, Harley. This first sleep isn't to forget, it's to begin again." Outside the window, the rain had started falling again, but this time it wasn't something to fear. 2 months after Harley opened his eyes in the vet clinic, he officially had a new home. Not the old one, with the chipped wooden steps or the echoes of Eli's childhood laughter. This home was just a few blocks away, smaller, simpler. But here, there was always a door left open for him in the evenings. Always a warm blanket by the sunlit window. And always, every morning, a soft voice from a kind woman saying, "Good morning, Harley. What did you dream about this time?" Sandra didn't just adopt Harley. She embraced his entire story, like she was safeguarding something rare and precious. Whenever guests came over, she'd introduce Harley as the old man who survived what no one thought possible. Harley no longer had to walk dusty roads. Each day he wandered the garden, resting beneath the old pear tree where Sandra had hung a small wind chime, just like the one that once swayed on the Turner's porch. That sound made Harley close his eyes, his head tilting gently to the side. Maybe he remembered, or maybe he just felt at peace. One mild afternoon near the end of fall, Sandra was sitting with Harley on the porch when a strange car pulled up to the gate. A young man stepped out of the car, tall, lean, somewhere in his early 20s. He walked slowly, as if retracing the steps of his childhood. Sandra squinted toward him, then froze. "Eli?" Eli Turner, the boy from all those years ago, was now a grown man. He had returned to town after 3 years away at college, and today he was simply planning to drive past the old house just to see what it looked like now. But the first thing he saw wasn't the weathered roof. It was Harley, lying peacefully on the porch across the street. I thought he'd been gone for years," Eli said, his voice catching. Sandra nodded. He almost was, but then he came back on his own. By then, Harley had lifted his head, his cloudy eyes locked onto Eli's, slareful. Eli knelt down. "Harley, it's me." A beat of silence passed, then Harley's tail began to wag, not fast, not strong, but unmistakably. Eli broke down in tears, not out of guilt but out of awe, because a piece of his childhood, a part of his soul he thought was long gone, was now lying right in front of him, breathing, watching, and forgiving. From that day on, Eli began visiting Harley often. He helped Sandra repair the fence, fix up the old doghouse, and sometimes he just sat for hours beside the old dog, telling him all the things he had missed. Harley no longer wandered. He didn't need to. Everything he had searched for, the porch, the familiar eyes, the name he once knew had returned. He slept more now, ate less. But every time someone called his name, he still opened his eyes, still answered with that soft, gentle look and a tiny wag of his tail. One quiet afternoon, Harley lay in the pale golden sun, his head resting on Sandra's leg, Eli beside them, smiling to himself. The wind chime rang again. And there, in the middle of a world that never stops moving, an old dog had finally found his way back to where he belonged. A home. A hand. A name still spoken. Harley. A quiet moment settled in, long enough for Eli to finally speak, his voice low, almost a whisper. I owe him an explanation, and I owe you one too. Sandra turned to him, saying nothing, just offering a gentle look that urged him to go on. When my family left, we didn't think it would be forever. None of us did. Everything started to unravel when Eli's father, Michael, lost his security contract due to declining health. Financial pressure weighed heavy on the family. They had to sell the house quickly and move into a small rental apartment in another city, where Eli's mom had just landed her first steady job in years. That apartment didn't allow dogs, Eli said. The landlord was strict, and if we broke the rules, my mom could have lost her job. Harley was already so weak back then. I remember him breathing hard, limping. The vet said he might not make it through the winter. Eli paused, his hands clenched tightly. I fought it, Eli said. I cried. I begged them to find a way to take him with us. They told me Harley would stay with Uncle Rick, Dad's best friend, the one who always said he'd take him if we ever needed help. But on the day we moved, Rick called. His truck had broken down. He couldn't make it. The whole family was thrown into chaos. The moving truck had already been scheduled. The new homeowners were pushing to take possession. In a moment of desperation and heartbreak, Michael left Harley behind, with a large bag of food, clean water, and a note taped to the gate, "We'll come back." My dad, he wasn't a bad man, but he was desperate. We all were. Everything happened so fast, and me, I just sat in the car, screaming. Eli bowed his head, his voice breaking. And then, we didn't come back, Eli said quietly. Day after day, life just pulled us in other directions. I was a kid, I didn't have a say, but as I got older, not a day went by that I didn't think about him. I remembered the way he looked at me that day, like he knew. A long silence followed. Only the wind chime by the porch broke the stillness, its soft metallic sound drifting through the air, the same one Harley always tilted his head to listen to. I made myself a promise that if I ever had the chance, I'd come back for him, but I never imagined he'd be the one to come looking for me first. Sandra placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. He doesn't blame you, Eli. All he ever needed was to see you one more time, and now he has. Harley still lay quietly, eyes closed, but his tail gave a gentle wag, as if in agreement. I want to stay here a while, Eli said. Help you. Be with him. Sandra smiled. This door is always open. Eli leaned down, gently stroking Harley's back. I'm sorry, old friend. Thank you for not giving up on me. Not every story needs a perfect ending, but some stories, even the ones born from pain, can still find their way to forgiveness. And sometimes, a single wag of the tail is all it takes to say, it's okay now. Harley wasn't the most extraordinary dog in the world. He never won medals, never pulled anyone from a burning building, and he wasn't famous on social media. He was just an old German shepherd, with a worn-out collar, a simple name, and a heart that didn't know how to quit. And maybe that's exactly why he became one of the dogs you never forget. Over the course of hundreds of miles, Harley pushed through time, storms, hunger, and abandonment. He didn't understand why the people he loved never came back. He had no way to ask why, no way to blame anyone. All he could do was what the most loyal dogs always do: wait. And if waiting wasn't enough, go searching. Maybe Harley never knew just how many lives he touched. A woman who once believed her heart had closed off to pets, opened it again. A young man who had carried guilt through his childhood, finally looked into those familiar eyes and learned how to forgive others and himself. And millions of people all around the world heard Harley's story and saw themselves in it. In the loneliness, in the search for belonging, and in the quiet hope of being loved. One more time. We live in a world that forgets old things too easily. An old toy, a worn-down house, an aging dog. But for souls like Harley, memory never fades, and love doesn't come with an expiration date. And the most important thing, the heart of a dog, even one that's been broken, is still big enough to wait for us to come home. Harley didn't live forever. No one does. But his story of loyalty, forgiveness, and the longing to return will live on. Maybe on another porch, in a small coffee shop, or on a YouTube channel like Dog Stories. And every time someone asks, how did he even find his way back after all those years? We only need to answer, because to a dog, love is the only map that matters. Don't wait until it's too late to return to the ones who once waited for you. And if you've ever left someone behind, whether it was a person or a dog, remember this: some gates are still open. Some eyes are still watching the road. We just have to be brave enough to go back. Thank you for staying with us through this emotional story. If it touched your heart, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to Dog Stories. We truly appreciate every bit of support from you. Always.